Hi everyone, I'm here in the undergrad lab bright and early, so it's about 5 a.m. I'm getting stuff set up and ready. The downside of doing this all by myself is I have to run all these time points. Anyways, what we need to do is get this furnace ready to run our annealing treatments. So this little piece right here, somebody just had some smaller samples on. We'll take that out and get that out of our way. We're ready to go inside. We'll just place our samples in here, different places, wherever we have room. So we'll go ahead and make sure that's closed. Next, we'll come down here, turn the furnace on. What we have here is our actual and our set. So we are going to increase our temperature to 550 degrees C, which remember is our solutionization temperature. And once we get that set point, we will hit run and then let that settle into that temperature that we need. All right. In the meantime, I'm going to do some preparation. I'll get some little baths ready for quenching the samples from this temperature, and I'll also bring out our samples and get them ready to put them in. All right, we can see the system is ramping up. Again, this is what the furnace is setting, and this is the actual temperature measured by a thermocouple. In the meantime, I've gotten a few things ready. I have some high temperature gloves if I need them. I have some tongs that I can use to grab my samples out of that furnace without touching anything. I've also set up a few beakers with water for quenching. So I'm gonna wanna take this sample from 550 degrees C and bring it relatively quickly back to room temperature. So I'm gonna put my samples in there. I also have my 3 different samples that I'm interested in, 1, 2, and 3. I went ahead and scratched labels 1, 2, and 3 into the back of them so I know which one I'm using at a given time. The other thing is, you notice I only have 2 sample quench stations. And that's because I'm only going to be annealing 2 samples today. So remember, we have a sample that we're going to let do natural aging at room temperature, a 150 degrees annealing treatment, and a 200 degree annealing treatment. The issue is that I have 1 furnace, so I can't do those 2 annealing treatments at temperature at the same time. So what I'm going to do today is 2 different samples, our room temperature natural aging and our 200 degrees C treatment. I'm going to do all my time points, measure my hardness, and then come back on a different day to do the 150 degrees C sample. All right, the furnace is all heated up. One thing you'll notice is I had to put the set just a few degrees above so that the actual temperature inside the furnace, the top one, is at 550, exactly like we want. I already actually put the samples in there because I needed 2 hands. I put on gloves on each of my hands, use these tongs and grab and put them in the top. I will open it up just to give you a picture before cutting off. But what you'll see is that the samples are in the top part of the furnace. I put them close to the thermocouple and in the center so that they're getting even heat. All right, I'll show you these and then I'll shut it back up. All right, they're in there getting annealed. All right, we're back. So the furnace has been at 550 for 3 hours. These samples have undergone their full solutionization treatment. What I'm gonna do is open this up, plop our 2 samples in these quenching baths, allow them to get back to room temperature so that we can then go and measure the properties of the one in terms of the natural aging, and the other one we're gonna put it back in at a lower temperature to allow for some precipitation to happen. This next step where I'm taking these out, it's gonna be very hot, so I'm not going to film it. I'm gonna be very safe and take my time. I'll come back to you after I have the samples quenched. All right, our samples out and they've been quenched. All right. What I did is I reset the furnace to 200 degrees C because that's where we're going to want to do our annealing treatment. You'll notice that I'm leaving it open so that I can get down to that temperature reasonably fast, cool off this furnace, and once it's there, I can put that sample back in to be quenched. or sorry, to be annealed. All right, so those samples have just been in there for a minute or two. They cool down very, very quickly. I'm gonna take them out, dry them off. One thing we'll notice is that the surface of the sample is a slightly different color than it was before. So it's a little bit more matte. And that's just because it's been in there. This furnace is not a vacuum furnace or anything like that, so it has a little bit of oxide on that surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to polish this sample up just with some really high grit numbers, so very subtle surface polishing to try to make it shiny enough right before I go back and do my hardness experiments. All right, I just quickly polished these just for a minute or two with that 4000 grit sandpaper, and we have our nice, beautiful surfaces again, okay? So one of these I'm gonna go do my hardness testing on to get my baseline measurement of the hardness of this material. And then I'm going to put the other one into this furnace at 200 degrees C so we can start to see how time at room temperature and time at 200 degrees C start to change the properties of these materials. All right, our annealed sample has been in there for about an hour. So I'm going to reach in with my tongs. It's a lot lower temperature, so it's not as intense. I'm gonna quench this sample. You can hear it, it was a little hot. Close this back up to try to keep my temperature relatively stable. Give that a minute or two, and I'm gonna go test the hardness of this sample now.